Hello and welcome to the weekly Benefit Sponger video, or those of you who aren't Benefit Spongers, if it's a Monday. Anyway, this week going to be mainly Q&A, less updates. Why less updates? Not a lot to update. Last weekend I was incredibly busy working with Shut Up and Sit Down on something that is going to be bloody amazing. The video should be up tomorrow, i.e. Friday. If you're watching this on Monday, it's already up. Go to Shut Up and Sit Down, watch the video. Basically, it was like a real-life XCOM, and I was the Prime Minister of Japan. Absolutely stunning. But I was doing that on the weekend for a whole day, and if you watch the video, as you'll see, it was exhausting. Like, I went home that night and I just went straight to sleep. So that kind of wiped me out for the whole weekend. So, yeah, yesterday I took a day off. First time I've taken a day off, actually, since I started doing this, really. But I was so tired this week. I was like, dude, you need to just relax. I was getting stressed. So had a really nice day. Did some baking. Made some ginger syrup, which is very good for making either cocktails or homemade ginger beer. Very easy. You just boil shitloads of ginger with sugar and water for about an hour, and then you get this amazing. Yeah, it's good. Anyway, yeah, so I haven't really been doing that much this week, to be honest. I do have some stuff I need to do, though. I still haven't played any Dark Souls all week because I was busy all weekend, so I need to play some Dark Souls. I started playing Transistor, but there's a weird bug that means when I go between levels, the screen goes black. I can fix it by tabbing in and out, but honestly, for a game as atmospheric as that, I really don't want to spoil it, so I'm kind of going to wait till it's fixed, I think. And the same with Wolfenstein. Wolfenstein has this ridiculous bug where it just, well, it has a problem with the AMD graphics cards in general, I think, which means that it keeps slowing down. When there's too much going on, it just slows the game down, and all of the cutscenes kind of go out of sync. It's a shame, because I've only played Wolfenstein for about an hour and a half, but really like it so far. It's really good fun. So yeah, a bit of a ball ache. And the fact that I was like, oh, I'm going to play some games on my day off. And then I started playing both the games I just bought, and they were like, neither of these games really work very well. Sort of a reminder about PC gaming. Sometimes PC gaming can be a nightmare. Which is odd, because PC gaming has been fine for a while. Well, I've had no problems with anything I've installed for ages. I wonder if it's something to do with the next-gen crossover, with games being optimized now for PS4 and Xbox, and maybe not. I don't know. Maybe devs at the moment have got a bit too much on their plate in terms of trying to optimize for new platforms, and so PC bugs are more likely to slip through. I've no idea. But hopefully it's a trend that won't continue, because I rather like having an AMD graphics card because it's not ridiculously expensive like those NVIDIA ones are. Damn NVIDIA bollocks. Anyway, I'm just going to crack on with questions. Oh yeah, I want to get through this today because I want to finally got the recordings for the FTL video from Ensign Quins, and as I suspected, Quentin has done an amazing job on the audio files. So now all I've got to do is actually film it, which I'm going to try and do today. We'll see. Yeah, quite excited. I know it's been ridiculous, and it's taken me such a long time to do this, but it will be good. It will be good. I've taken a while to script it and stuff, and should be cool. Anyway, I'm just going to jump straight into questions because I hardly did any questions last week because I've spent so long talking about bloody foam, didn't I? Although it has made a difference. It's made a difference. That's me doing Duel of the Fates again. Let me have a quick look. Try and find which bit. Am I on the wrong bit? Am I on the wrong bit? Am I on the wrong bit? Do 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 do. William Donald asks, with Western society moving towards greater and greater support of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, or trans community, do you think we will see a AAA game with an LGBT? LGBT always makes me think of BLT sandwiches. LGBT, crunchy lettuce. What? What do you mean? No, basically, yeah. I mean, obviously, he said, do you think we'll see a game with a protagonist as canon, not in a kind of Mass Effect, choose your own adventure sort of way? Probably, I don't know. I mean, there were some spoilers in the discussion thread below this. Actually, I've had this spoiled not by you guys on the comments here, but I have had this spoiled for me somewhere. I can't remember. I was reading a comments thread and I was like, oh, I hadn't had a chance to play that yet. That's kind of spoiled it for me. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, to be honest, at the moment, there just seems to be such a stupid uproar to whenever we get characters that can be gay if you want them to be gay. And And so I don't think it's likely we'll see that in a AAA game. But then AAA games are increasingly less relevant, I feel. So who cares, in a weird way? I mean, I think it kind of feels pretty lame at the moment. They had that thing with, I think it was Resident Evil Bollocks Cox. I can't remember what the game was called. It was that one that wasn't very good. You know the one. Third-person shooter that looked like it might be a laugh, but actually just looked a bit crap. The guy behind that said, oh, one of that characters was gay, but it's the sort of thing where it's like, it's kind of doing a J.K. Rowling of being like, oh, Dumbledore was gay, yeah, he was, whenever he wasn't in the books, he was off getting it right up the bum, probably. It just never mentioned it. It's kind of like, does it matter? I guess it does in a way, but it doesn't really feel like, I don't know. It's a really complicated one, but I think AAA, no, I mean, as much as I've enjoyed Wolfenstein, it is hilarious in the fact that you kind of look at it and go, God, games haven't changed like a lot. I mean, it's finessed, it's new, it's shinier, but it's like we're still sort of AAA is still trapped in this very, very tight niche. So probably not, but I don't think it matters. I'd like to see it just more games like Mass Effect, which don't make a big deal about having it as an option. And I find it hilarious when people actually kick off about that, because it's just like, dude, like, unless you really, really went down the path of being like, oh, I really want to have sex with a man, like, you wouldn't even notice. Like, I didn't even notice that there were any gay men in Mass Effect 3, because I didn't try and chat up any men. So yeah, it's very much Storm in a Teacup stuff. Alec Norton asks, if you were drafted in to advise Nintendo of the creation of their next console, what tips would you give them of having a fighting edge against Sony and Microsoft without relying on the staple characters, Mario/Zelda, etc.? You know what? I'm not going to get into that because, I mean, I don't know. Loads of people like tell Nintendo what Nintendo should do. I don't exactly know. I think Nintendo are best when they're doing mad creative shit. And every time they've had an idea that I thought was terrible, it's ended up to be really good. I thought the Wii sounded like a disaster. It sounded to be amazing. I thought the DS sounded like a disaster. It sounded to be amazing. I thought the 3DS sounded like a disaster. It turned out to be amazing. So I think the Wii U is fucked, and I keep saying that. But I think the only thing they need to do is they need to make sure that whatever they have next, they have a good lineup of launch stuff. They need to do the crossover thing with Zelda again. You know, if they release a new Zelda game on the Wii U and then don't release, it's like, I don't know. They keep bringing stuff out at the wrong time. The one thing I would say about Nintendo, actually, the one thing I would say which I think is a really good idea is the fact that they have incredibly talented teams and they have them working on the old staple stuff, and I think that's a shame. Like Super Mario 3D World, the team behind that are clearly incredibly talented, and Nintendo really needs to create new things. And I think there's a tendency for them to have their golden goose, their best young talent, working on the creations and working on iterating on the creations of their predecessors. And I think that's not a good idea, because I think that when you have that, you are going to inhibit creativity. And when you have very young talent being restricted in that way, you tend to get things that aren't very good, you know, just not as good as they could be. I think they need to have the balls to let their teams run wild a bit and come out with some new exciting stuff. Just because, yeah, I mean, Nintendo used to release lots of new things and they don't really anymore. In a way, they've become a bit conservative, well, more conservative than usual. But I think they definitely need to ditch the Wii U. If they do, then I don't know. It just feels like it's not a good. It would be crap if you've got a Wii U and they suddenly ditch it. But it feels like the alternative is to just keep pouring money down a hole. Chris Chalk mentions about, he's talking about the rusty salad fingers, rusty spoons. Yeah, apparently people keep telling me that my impression of the Bolton bastard from, oh God, I thought the weather was going to be stable today. I didn't think we were going to have to worry about any zebra nonsense. There we go. Yeah, I'm not really aware of salad fingers. I didn't really like it when I was younger. I remember my mates loved it, but I didn't like the creepy stuff. I like the kind of mad stuff. I quite like Tales of the Blood and stuff. Tales of the Blood. You can't dig a tunnel to the center of the moon. Yes, I can. I always just like the mad stuff rather than the dark stuff. Just because it always felt quite, I don't know, like something making mad stupid stuff always feels a bit easier than just being like creating really weird dark stuff. Because I don't know. Joshua McGann tells me, it's not really a question, he just tells me my output at the minute was really good. Chill out a bit, man. Well, I did chill out, Joshua. I chilled out yesterday. It was nice. And I might bake some bread today. Who knows? Just living la vida loca. Ooh. Chris Chalk This is actually a question. Don't think before wasn't. He says the question was, do you feel that YouTube is a closed circuit system in the way that if you're not already big and popular, YouTube itself does nothing to promote you? Yes. I mean, that's one of the reasons I didn't want to play the YouTube game, was I realized that if you wanted to promote yourself on YouTube, the only way to do that was to just go for videos with tremendous amounts of hits, reliably, you know. It was quite telling that when I was a video game, it was very frustrating because there were companies such as with traditional kind of media values that were bigger than us, like Eurogamer, seemed to be getting a lot of direct support from YouTube and a direct contact. They had contact. And it is funny. I mean, it's basically just a case of YouTube, because I guess it has so many different channels and so many different things that they tend to have favorites. And I don't know how it works, but it was kind of frustrating that there were channels, other YouTube channels, which had less subscribers than video gamers, who were getting more hands-on support, offered access to technology and seminars and things by YouTube. And even the way it's like, I mean, they're good guys, but it was like, I remember the Outside Xbox guys got sent, when they got their first video that had 1 million views, they got sent a box of cupcakes from YouTube saying, congratulations on your first 1 million view video. And it's like, well, guys, like, I got, the video I did for Video Gamer got like 5.5 million views 4 months ago. And we've gone from having about 1,000 subscribers to having almost 90,000 subscribers in 6 months. And we still can't contact you. Like, we had no way of contacting YouTube. No one would reply to our emails. So I found that very frustrating. Going into it from a traditional media perspective, it was like, look, we're trying to use your service properly as part of a media website. Please, can you help us? And it was very frustrating to have no real form of contact. But then as a solo entity, it's equally bad. I mean, like, no one gives a piss about one person. Unless you're huge, you know, and if you have got a huge following, then you might have a contact to YouTube. But I get the impression it's still very difficult, and they're very, very fuzzy. And yeah, I mean, it's a combination of algorithm support, which is based on a bunch of things. And there's actually a really interesting article, I think it was a video actually, about how PewDiePie got so big. And it's a connection of multiple things. But it's mostly to do with his nationality. It's mostly to do with the fact that if you're getting lots of hits from outside of your country, it makes you look... It's a weird thing about the fact that because he's from this country and he's getting most of his traffic from outside of the UK and the US, which are the most people watching stuff, it makes his numbers look bigger. But then because he has an American account, it was a combination of things. It was like a perfect storm that made him much more likely to be promoted by the algorithms. So you've either got to be promoted by the algorithms, which basically means like either changing the country you live in, which is why actually a lot of YouTubers move to America, because it helps with the algorithms, which is just mental. You know, the internet shouldn't be localized like that, but it kind of is. Or you have to have actual support from people working at Google and working at YouTube. And you have to be one of the channels that they like, which is really difficult because they're, as a media entity, they're very flippant. And I mean, I think at the moment they're trying to legitimize themselves. And that's why when they had the Geek Week and Movie Week and all that stuff, they basically... It was really, really shit. It was some of the worst stuff I've ever seen on the platform, because what they'd done was they'd taken traditional YouTubers who very much have become popular through creating content which has nothing in common with traditional media, and forced them into traditional media templates. So you had YouTubers doing quiz shows, YouTubers doing panel shows, YouTubers doing films and sitcoms, and it was all terrible because these YouTubers often... I don't want to be a bitch about it, but often they don't really have any talent. Like, what they do doesn't really involve talent. It's often just 100% personality led. They don't really put any thought into structure or anything really. They just do shit. And also they have very specialized forms of what they do. You know, even people who do Let's Plays or people who just do vlogs, like they don't have an understanding of how to create different things. I mean, I understand the differences between those things. I've done live interviews, I've done vlogs, I've done presenting. I understand that they're different methods, different angles. You approach them in a different way, you behave in a different way. And if you don't know how to do that, then you just start putting people into these different things, saying, yeah, it's fine, you can do like TV style presenting, can't you? Then it just falls apart like a wet paper bag, and that's what happened. So it is quite frustrating, especially because of the fact that I was like, well, when I was at Video Game, I was like, well, I know what YouTube want. YouTube want well-produced, well-thought-out content of a kind of quality that would be synonymous with like traditional media. And I felt that's what we were creating, and yet it was still just banging our head against the wall in terms of actually trying to get any real concrete support from them. In the end, we did actually get contact, but no support from them. It felt very much like we were trying to use their platform in a way that elevated it and made it better than it usually was, and had a higher quality level of content than usual. But it's difficult, because you are basically trying to appeal to either a robot or a bunch of ad salesmen, because that seems to me that mainly Google and YouTube are just a bunch of fucking ad sales fuckwits who don't really understand good content. But anyway, I don't like the whole system really. I think YouTube is a great video platform for streaming video, but I don't trust it in terms of, I don't trust it in the long term, and I don't like it really. I don't like the way they function. I don't like the way that they choose which things to promote. I think it's crap really. But there aren't any other options, so it's fine. But there are other options obviously, because you can just game the system like I'm doing and just switch the adverts off, which means YouTube doesn't get a cut of any of this money, but then neither do I. It doesn't matter. I'm sorted elsewhere. It's all good. Ross Kennedy asks, have you ever done stand-up comedy? Would you ever do so? No, probably. I mean, the thing is, stand-up comedy is one of those funny things that whenever I go to see stand-up, I always find myself sitting there watching. I find it interesting because I'm always interested in comedy. I'm always interested in the construction of comedy and trying to understand how people have created the jokes they have, how people have made things funny, and the craft of it. And I'm always most awed by comedians that I just almost can't understand how they've done it. I can't understand how they've got there. I think Limmy's the comedian who consistently does that the best. The stuff he comes out with is just so often so kind of out there, but also not. He manages to combine like real kind of properly wonderful craziness and not the kind of like thrown together nonsense that you get people like Noel Fielding doing, going, oh, imagine a tent made of owls. That's not difficult. But what Limmy does fantastically is takes incredibly interesting, bizarre concepts, but then applies them so wonderfully to the most normal, everyday things that people just like, the kind of traditional observational comedy. But the way he merges the two and just plays with the expectations, and it's just wonderful. It's really, really good. I mean, that's not stand-up, but yeah, but I mean, whenever I see stand-up, I always find myself thinking, I could do this. I could definitely do this. And sort of thinking, I could do this. But I think the question is, I always start off thinking I could do this, but then I always end up thinking, but do I want to? And the answer is usually no, because the funny thing about stand-up is the amount of times you see a stand-up and they go and they do their set and they make everyone laugh and then just go and stand by the bar on their own. And there's this sort of weird wall in the fact that because of the nature of it, people then feel like awkward going to talk to them, and if they do, it's just a case of going, oh, that was funny, mate. Yeah. And they always, I don't know, as a life, it always looks quite lonely because you always end up going around to rooms of small people or bigger people. Yeah, I don't know. It's a lot of work. It looks quite lonely. And I don't know. I like being able to craft my jokes a bit more. I think the only thing that I think would be great about stand-up is getting that sense of actual direct feedback for jokes. So being able to make a joke, see how it goes down, and then work out the different ways you can tweak it to make it funnier. I think that that's an incredibly valuable thing. And it's something I may do at some point just because it's getting that direct feedback about what people like is useful. But I feel at the same time, what I've always found crazy about stand-up compared to what the things I do on YouTube is when I do make something funny on YouTube, you can just, you can immediately, if you make something really funny and you perfect it and you think, that's really funny, that's funny, I like that, you can send it out and within, an hour, you could have had 1 million people see it. With stand-up, that's going to take you, to get an audience of 1 million people seeing your work, that could take you your entire career and you still might not even be anywhere near that number. So to me, it just feels like I don't really have any craving for that kind of immediate physical feedback of having people liking something what you're doing in the same room and getting that kind of laughter. I kind of don't need that. I think I do need that, but not as much. I'm kind of actually quite happy just to have people going, that was great, and actually just a few people tweeting at me and going, that was so funny. That's enough for me. So yeah, I think stand-up comedy is a strange one. It feels a bit more self-destructive and a lot more hard work than what I do. But I'd like to try it at some point just because, I don't know, I like doing things that frighten me, and I think at some point I might do. Just when or why, I don't know. If somebody said to me, do you want to do some, video game related stand-up at a thing or something, I might have a go at it. I don't know. We'll see. And obviously there's a bit of chatter here because it was something that was a lot of people talking about in the comments for last week's video was to do with the whole E3 abridged thing. I've kind of come to the decision on that now, actually. I'm going to do them. I'm going to do some E3 abridged stuff. I don't know how much or what exactly, but I am definitely going to do some E3 abridged stuff, but I'll be doing it on my channel. I'll just do it on my channel. Because it just felt wrong. And the reason I kept mentioning it is because I really did want a kind of a wider array of feedback, because I know a lot of people are just want me to be happy doing what I'm doing and feel comfortable what I'm doing and all that stuff. So a lot of people initially were just going, yeah, do it, it'll be fine. But there were people, as I suspected, who were a bit like, I don't know, this doesn't feel like it sits quite right with me. And actually that was all I needed, because I think I'd already kind of made my mind up that it didn't feel right. And I think if I'd gone ahead with it, I wouldn't have felt happy about it. So I'm just going to do them here. And it's going to be better because it means I can just not worry about anything and just do them whenever I want. And if I decide I don't want to do it, or decide I've had enough doing it, I can just stop. So it's all going to be absolute gravy. Good old ginger tea. I should have put my homemade ginger syrup in here. Might have been too much. Adam McReynolds asks how I felt about the Left Behind DLC for The Last of Us. Haven't played it yet. But I have had it a bit spoiled for me, unfortunately. And Stephen Psalm. Psalm, interesting. It's written S-A-L-M, but not like Psalm, like a Psalm number 36. This psalm is a little psalm I like to call, hello Jesus, how you doing, baby? Stephen asks, are people like you good for traditional websites? Well, that's a question, isn't it? Yeah. It's just sort of like, didn't mother ever tell you about girls like me, etc.? Stephen says, I only started going to Video Gamer after I found you through my brother, and then found Video Gamer. And yes. It depends. I mean, it's difficult, basically. I mean, people like me, good for traditional websites. Sometimes, I mean, yes, I guess, but it's very difficult to know what to do with me, I think. That's the problem. I was very lucky to have the freedom I did when I was a video gamer. I pretty much just got given free reign to do whatever I wanted. I think most websites, I wouldn't be able to do that for a variety of reasons, to have that kind of freedom to just do whatever I want. And it would be a bit more regimented. It would be, okay, you do this, you do this. I mean, it's even like, you know, working with The Escapist has made me realize that, and the fact that it's like, well, you know, they haven't actually told me what to do or anything, but, you know, we've talked about how Game of Thrones Abridged has been going. We've talked about how it's being received by, sorry, I had a bit of lemon on the table. I don't know where that came from. Talked about how it's been received, and basically they've said, look, you know, it seems like a lot of what people really like at The Escapist is sort of kind of often a bit more like critical, like, you know, looking at stuff, tearing stuff apart a bit. And it's like, we talked about if there's a way we could adapt the series to make it a bit more like that. And I think I've already actually been doing that a bit anyway, just naturally, kind of thinking, okay, well, you guys don't like the just silly voices and knob gags, which I was going for because, I don't know, it's just daft and fun. And even though it's very pure, I quite enjoy it. So I thought, well, you know, let's try and make it a bit more snarky, a bit more critical, point out stuff about the plot a bit more, point out stuff that doesn't make sense. But it's difficult because I imagine if I was then going to have like a weekly show about games or something for The Escapist, it would be like, you know, well, you know, it's going to be Matt does this. I think it's a general thing. It's not just about websites. You have to have a sense of consistency. So I think the problem I had or would have if I was looking at a website was it would be like, it would either be, oh, this is Matt Lees, he's giving you an in-depth review of games and explaining why they're bad or not. Or this is Matt Lees, he's making funny stuff. Or this is Matt Lees, he's angry about something in the industry again. And the problem is I kind of like doing all three of them, and I think there's a crossover between all three, but how they flow, as you've probably already noticed, tends to depend quite a lot. So some weeks you'll get a couple of weeks of just funny nonsense. Some weeks you'll get a couple of weeks of genuinely quite annoyed about something in the industry. Sometimes you'll just get like a lot of introspective like thoughts about games and stuff, and it will vary and it will be erratic, but that's because that's kind of who I am. I try to put a lot of myself into my work, and I'm, you know, like most people, not two-dimensional. But in terms of having video content as well, a lot of video content is sold on the basis of it's on the basis of sponsorship. So it's basically having, you know, you have a video series, you get it sponsored by a brand, and then, but you can't just have like, I don't think, I mean, maybe if I was more famous, you could just have the Matt Lees show, where it would be like some weeks it would be just a funny show, some weeks it'd be angry, some weeks it'd be thoughtful and clever. But I think a lot of people would just be like, people like familiarity. People like to know what they're getting. People like to come and get the same thing. And I think that that's a difficult thing to fit into, because websites are all about, traditional media websites are all about structure. And I think whilst I might work as a video columnist, for other things, it would be tricky. But you know what? It's sort of a combination thing. It's half that I'm not a good fit for traditional websites sometimes, but it's also that traditional websites just aren't a good fit for me. You know, the whole setup, it's very hard to know where to fit me in with the news, previews, reviews, the features. And to be honest, you know, as we're seeing at the moment, a lot of traditional games websites are really struggling because of the way they've been built. And I don't know, it's not a good time to be involved in that stuff at all, I don't think. And I think it's a good time to be not involved in it. There are some places that do stuff well and do the sort of thing I'd like to do. I mean, I think what RPS do is similar to what I would aspire to be like if I was running my own thing, of having stuff that was all tied together by a sense of passion, but just generally a bit different. But then, you know, it's difficult. You know, I kind of felt like what I do is, I know the exact niche I want to be involved in, and I don't really want to compromise on that. And RPS have a bit of baggage. You know, I feel like I like a lot of what they do, but there's definitely already some stuff involved there that I kind of, there are elements that I don't feel as comfortable with, really. Just there's a bit of kind of, I mean, coming from me, it might seem a bit hypocritical, but there's an element for parts of RPS to feel a bit too crusadery for me, and I don't like that. I do try and have conversations about stuff, but I try not to preach. And I sometimes pretty fail at that, to be honest. It's difficult to have, when you're angry about something and you want to talk about something, it's very difficult to do that without preaching. But I do my best not to. And I think that there's an element of RPS which can be quite preachy. I think you don't need to beat around the bush with this too much. I guess everyone knows what I'm talking about. So I think traditional websites, in a weird place anyway, but as I've said in the past, I would like to start my own website at some point. It's just knowing how to do that and being able to do that, mainly because I'd like to give, I wish I could give people some jobs, really. It's a tough time for the industry at the moment, and there's a lot of really talented people having to do really shit stuff, and a lot of talented people who are probably going to be out of jobs and maybe out of the industry because there just aren't enough jobs around. And that really sucks, because I sort of feel like, as I've said in the past, you know, if I go back in time 15 years, I reckon I could have quite easily stomped into an office somewhere and said, hey, you, Mr. Bankers, or hey, you, Mr. Advertisers, give me $500,000 and I'm going to start my own website. And I mean, that happened with Polygon, but I don't know. I guess it might be easier to fund something like Polygon, which is like, hey, we're going to make this really, it's going to be beautiful, it's going to be quite worthy, it's going to be clever, it's going to be smart, it's going to be high quality, high sheen, whereas me just being like, hey, it's going to be fucking silly, we're going to have really funny stuff, but people like funny stuff, you know? I'd love to be in a position where I could basically effectively assemble the Mega 64 of the UK, because I think it will be better. I think I already know the people I want to do it with. I want Quentin Smith. I probably want some John Blythe in there. I want some Gav Murphy, some Steve Hoggerty. A lot of the guys I work with a lot anyway. I know some so many funny people, but I can't really. I'm not able to justify that a way of getting them involved with me in a way that would work, you know, without it being everyone using their weekends to do stuff. And it's kind of difficult, you know, when you get to a certain age, you start to realize your free time is slipping away from you, and expecting everyone to just spend all of their time on weekends coming and helping you film stuff, which is of no discernible benefit to them, is kind of a hard sell. It's easier when you're younger because you have, you know, you've got more time. Yeah, it's difficult, but you know, can't complain. And I still have hope. I still have hope that there'll be a way at some point I'll be able to do this. Who knows, you know, things might pick up or something. Anyway, Manus Noble says, a pretty basic question from me. Do you think the way that we actually interact with and physically play games is important to most gamers? Don't quite understand this question so far. So basically he's talking about how everyone seems to just care about resolutions and frame rates. But he talks about how the importance of the actual controller you're holding and how it feels is so important. Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree. I don't really understand a lot of the stuff about frames and resolutions. I mean, it looks nice, but it's amazing how like quickly, if you go back and play an old game, you start off going, "Oh, this is so ugly," and then within half an hour, you've just grown used to what it looks like, and you just stop thinking about it. I actually almost find now, when I've started playing sort of super high-res FPS games on my PC, because it's quite tasty, I find it actually harder to focus sometimes. Almost, it's almost like there's so much detail. It's a bit much. I feel like if I'm sitting quite close to the screen, I'm a bit like, I need to be further away from this. Not because of the size, but it's too much going on. I find it harder to maintain my focus on a game like that, whereas I can easily maintain my focus for long periods of time on games which are lower, like less detailed. I don't know. Maybe that's something I've noticed. Also, I have also been thinking a lot about the whole resolution thing, and I wonder how much, not the resolution thing, the frames thing. I wonder how many people who really care about FPS frame stuff are younger, because there was that recent comparison thing, which that site was like, here's a GIF of 60 frames per second, here's a GIF of 30 frames per second. Can you see the difference? And of course you can see the difference. I mean, you watch them side by side, it's like, yeah, the 60 frames one is a lot smoother. But actually, sometimes the 60 frames per second one looks like less real. There's something about the 30 frames per second that makes me kind of, I don't mind it. And I think it might be because having grown up with just TV all the time, I don't know, it just looks like TV. Like 30 frames per second just looks like TV, and TV is in my head looks real. So in a way, it's like, I don't know, there's something about 60 frames per second. It's nice, it's really nice, don't get me wrong, but I don't need it, and everything still seems quite good for me with 30 frames a second. In the way that sometimes less frames per second are better, you know? I often, when I'm making stuff, I think this, for example, actually, this is filmed, I believe, in 25 frames per second. 25 frames per second is what most films use. So it gives stuff a certain film-like quality. So technically you're losing 5 frames per second, but yeah, but then when they filmed bits of The Hobbit in 60 frames per second, or maybe the whole thing, I can't bloody remember, it made it look a bit like a video game. It made it look a bit weird, almost. So I don't know, I think the thing about frames per second is I think that it's a bit boring that people only talk about it as being a quality element, of being like higher is better, because in the world of film and TV, you would use different frame rates for different purposes, you know? It actually changes the feel of the work. And that's not something that's ever thought about in games or ever discussed, you know, of being like, will this change the way the game feels by having a different frame rate? I guess the problem is that the obsession with games is all about resolution and all about it's all about resolution and it's all about frame rate, because it seems that the ideal, the aim that we're going for is to make games feel and look more real, to make them more realistic. So to try and break that sense of feeling like, because I guess that's the dream of a lot of people, is like to make it really feel more and more like you are actually there, because it's about wanting to feel immersed in a world. And if you can make it, the more real you can make it look, the more real it will feel. But I don't think that's true. I don't think that's what immersion is. And I don't think that's how it comes about. And I think it's a false aim to go for. And I think it's dumb. I think it's a poor man's, you know, it's like a lot of people feel that's the way to make something better. In the way that you probably have people in film being like, oh, the best way to make a good film is by using the best cameras. And it's like, well, no, it's not. You know, you can have films made with very poor quality cameras that can feel, or even sometimes not very good acting. You know, I rewatched Clerks recently. It's not it's not shot very professionally. Some of the acting's a bit off, but it's got a lot of heart. You know, you get into it. But anyway, I think that's an interesting question for another time, really. It's just what is it exactly we're aiming for here? Because I mean, I don't know. With films, it would seem daft if people were obsessed with making films somehow more, but I suppose they are with 3D. I don't know. It just seems like a Muppets game to me. But yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting topic. It's something I definitely think about more in the future. Oh, playing a video, whoop, whoop, whoop. Right. I am going to jump through some more. I did ask people kindly not to leave too many questions on this last week's video because I didn't cover the ones from before, but I'm going to try and go through. Some people have been asking actually about podcasting and mic setups, and have I thought about using 4 cardioid mics for the Daft Soul stuff? Yeah, but I'm not. I mean, contrary to what it looks like in this room, I'm not made of space. You know, I haven't got like a tremendous amount of room, and because I share this place, you know, it's not just my place. I can't really fill it with microphones. That sort of thing of having a room with like 4 microphones through, you know, with pop caps and with a desk. 1, it's really bloody expensive, but 2, it's just a lot of space. It's very hard to have something like that you can then. You need to devise something very carefully so you could basically just have a setup that was then hideable. Otherwise, my God, too much room. I'm happy with it. I mean, especially when I'm next door, which should be happening this week, I believe. Yeah, actually, on Saturday, my big table's arriving. Get a desk, set it up next door, and then I'll have an all-in-one room of video fucking magic. It's gonna be amazing. I'm actually quite excited. That was a terrible noise I just made. Philippe Magales, which is an amazingly written name. Simple question. Shampoo first or after soap? He says, I know some crazy people who think that if you don't shampoo first, all of the stuff that was in your hair negates the previously used soap. Thoughts? Whoa. I don't know. I mean, I haven't really thought about that, to be honest. I think that's kind of probably a bit mad, you know, probably a bit crazy OCD to worry about that maybe some of the shampoo from your hair might have got on your... Yeah, I don't think it matters. But then, I mean, they'll probably hate this, but I don't really shampoo my hair every day. I shampoo my hair about once a week. If you shampoo hair like mine every day, it becomes horrible. It becomes very dry, wiry. No. Once a week at most. The rest of the time, just condition. Pro tips. Feels a bit dirty sometimes, but it looks good. Anyway, Talisian Lake asks, would I consider reappearing as a guest on the Co-optional podcast? Absolutely. And actually, Total Biscuit, after I'd done it, said that was great if you want to appear in the future. And actually even said to me when I was leaving, said when you've got your new stuff sorted, if you want to come on again, that'd be great. I would love to go back on again. It was good fun. It was quite interesting, actually. And obviously gets watched by a crazy amount of people, which is kind of intimidating. But it's kind of cool, especially, you know, to be able to talk about interesting things, talk about the sort of topics that I usually talk about with you guys. But actually, you know, especially when you get contentious questions, it's nice to be able to say something sensible and not reactive and not crazy. And actually, I can't remember what it was I was talking about last time, but I think it was nice. Quite a few people afterwards came and said, I hadn't actually thought about it like that before. That's a really good point. You sort of changed my mind. And that's like brilliant. That's amazing when you can do that sort of thing. But as I say, at the moment, I mean, I think he's going into surgery tomorrow. So I kind of left it. I mean, it just feels a bit tactless to know the stuff he's going through. I think it's amazing how he's continuing to work so much, really. I guess it would probably take your mind off that stuff, but still, it would feel very tactless for me to go, hey, can I come on your podcast again? At the moment, I mean, you know, once he's got all his surgery stuff, once he's better, I'll probably give him a poke about it, but it feels a bit shitty to be asking for some self-promotion at a point at which somebody is going into bloody hospital for cancer. To say the least, it would make me a full-on shitbag. So basically at the moment I've just sent him my goodwill and hope that he gets better soon. Okay. Somebody's asked me if I'll do a 70s television style like television video games. I don't know enough about 70s TV enough. 80s TV is about as far as I can go. I mean, I've got a general idea, but I don't know. Ideas come together when they come. Johan Eriksson says, hello, Matt. How do you feel about cutscenes in games? Basically saying, are they dismissing the primary strength of the medium, or are they cheaply borrowing from a medium that has a longer history in order to kind of make people more initially familiar with it? I don't know. He's basically said, do you have examples to mind where you thought cutscenes were unnecessary or where cutscenes would have been better? I think it really depends what you're doing. You've got to be quite consistent. Oh, I'm turning into a ghost again. you've got to be consistent. I think that's the most important thing. It doesn't really matter whether you use them or don't. You just have to decide. I mean, I felt that cutscenes were done brilliantly in The Last of Us, just because they didn't tell narrative that couldn't have been told otherwise. They were used to basically just make leaps. So I love, there was some classic bits like you'd see Joel lay his head down, then immediately it would be night or day, I can't remember. I think it was night, put his head down. As soon as his head hits the pillow, it's the morning, which is great because immediately it conveys that he feels like he hasn't slept because time's just flown by, but also it's a really nice way of just immediately going, right, this much time has passed, you know? And even the way actually it handled it with towards the end of The Last of Us, when it's like, you know, it just suddenly jumps ahead and months have passed. It's just a really smart way of doing it. Just click your fingers, time's passed. I think that's good for technical limitations because I imagine, I'm just guessing, but I imagine that the process of trying to change like an entire scene in game to just immediately go bump and just completely get rid of all of the assets that are currently there and replace them with another set of assets to showcase that that's happened in engine would probably be a lot of work. Whereas obviously with pre-rendered video, you can immediately have one pre-rendered scene immediately change within the frames, instantaneous, to another entirely pre-rendered scene. And I think that that's still an advantage that technically to try and work around that in engine would feel to me needlessly like you're just making work for yourself, because that's just going to be a hellish task, and the amount of time and effort you'd have to put into that is stupid. However, when games use cutscene to control plot that wouldn't have needed to be done in the cutscene, that always feels crap, you know? It's really hard. I think when people go, oh, cutscenes, I don't think that's fair, and I think you've got to think about how they're used and why they're used. I mean, unskippable cutscenes as well. I think the trick is that you shouldn't have anything superfluous. You know, you shouldn't have cutscenes that don't need to be there. If you've got a cutscene which is somebody saying, "Open the door," I can't open the door. We've got to get through the door. Just have that in game. You know, if you've got anything that's supposed to be tension or supposed to be stressful or supposed to create a sense of that, have it in the game. Make it a thing that you experience in the game. And I think that when people complain that games have unskippable cutscenes, that's not the fault of the game for forgetting to have a bit where you can press start and skip a cutscene. It's the fault of the game for having cutscenes that you want to skip, you know? They should be punchy. They should be fast. You shouldn't have whole sequences where you just sit and watch something for a long time. I mean, I don't know. Some games do that, but I mean, I guess at least then you know what you're getting yourself into. Like, you know, a Metal Gear Solid game, you know you're going to mainly be watching it rather than playing it. And if you want that, that's fine, but I don't know. One of the things I have been impressed with so far in Wolfenstein is the fact it does use a combination of in-engine stuff and cutscenes. But the cutscenes are all very short. Like, it just has these tiny little cutscenes for a second, where it basically just goes, okay, well, we're just going to, like, for a split second or second or two, we're going to show you your character, Blazkowicz. And they seem to do it just so you can get a sense of the character you're playing, I guess, which is, you know, I haven't got far enough into it to know how well that works, but it's admirable. It doesn't seem like they're using cutscenes to show something amazing happening. They're using cutscenes to show your character. So I'd never write off cutscenes as a medium, and I think they can be excellent. I think the problem is people use them to stitch together games. They use them often. I think sometimes actually they're put in there as loading buffers. You know, they're put in there because they go, well, we need to load this level, so we need to have a cutscene that lasts 15 seconds here. Or like that's 5 seconds here, and you can skip it after 4 seconds or something, but it means that they end up having to create scenes just so you can do the work behind the scenes, so you can get like, oh, we're getting it ready, and that's really weak, because that is an inherent compromise. If you've basically gone, well, you need to do something else, you need to make it longer. It's like making a film and being like, well, it's a great film, I really enjoyed it, but it needs to be 20 minutes longer. Like, well, this is the film though. Nah, it needs to be 20 minutes longer, because films are always 2 hours, and this isn't quite 2 hours, so make it 20 minutes longer. It's like, but we'll make it worse. And it's like, doesn't matter, it's got to be longer. It's compromise. So I think you got to make sure that you know what you're doing there. But anyway, Matt Arnott asked if Matt's hair grew during the video. I swear there was a point it just got bigger, probably, and it's probably happened again today. It just happens. My hair takes forever to dry. Richard Inside a baseball question related to your last remarks on the video, and this was last week. If things like Game of Thrones Abridged are parodies and hence you can't do them in the UK, it's not that you can't do parodies, by the way, it's that you can't use copyrighted material. If I was reenacting scenes from Game of Thrones, then it would be fine. However, I couldn't do that because, my God, I'm just one person and the costume costs alone would bankrupt me. He says, don't your E3 videos also count similarly? Sort of, yes. Basically, the way it works with that is technically somebody could say that that was owned. And that happened with the VGX last year. I did VGX Abridged, and we had to put it on Video Gamer's site because they were immediately getting all content that registered it taken down, issuing takedowns automatically to YouTube and putting black marks on channels saying copyright. They weren't just saying take it down. They were going, boom, immediate, you've broken copyright. You're in bad standing with YouTube. Which is pretty scary if you use YouTube for money. So technically that can be a problem, but the difference is that most of the time with the E3 conferences, people don't care because Sony don't care because Sony just, if they get loads of people uploading their conference, it's more coverage for their conference. More people see it. That's good for them. So erratic light. Hopefully the light won't be as erratic when I move to the other room. Yeah, so they don't really care too much. So technically somebody could say, hey, that's Sony's production of the E3 conference. But actually, because they're not putting it up there, the E3 conference isn't the product in a way. It's not like they're going to sell it on DVD. It's just their way of disseminating information. So first of all, it's most of the time they don't care. They cared with VGX, but that's because VGX is Viacom. They're a big media company, and largely they behave a bit like dicks because of it. So that's that. The only problem is when you use clips from trailers, and this actually happened with quite a few of my E3 abridged, well, my abridged videos, was because it uses like a clip of an EA game or an EA trailer. They then get automatically logged as going, this belongs to EA. And there's nothing you can do about that, really. I mean, you can say, no, it doesn't, but it's going to take a period of maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks to get it back and to have them accept it and go, actually, okay, this is fair use. By which point you've already had all the views and all of the ad money have already gone to EA. You never get the money back. I don't know where the money goes, but you never get the money back. They never go, oh, sorry, no, you're right. Here's the money you would have earned. You just don't get any, which is kind of a strangely guilty until proven innocent system that basically benefits large companies and really fucks over content creators, which is the way the world works, unfortunately, because the world is completely slanted towards copyright owners because it's rubbish. So that is a problem. And although I've decided that I am going to do my E3 videos on my channel, there is almost the dumb thing about the fact that there's a good chance that my videos will get claimed by third parties because they'll contain E3 content and they'll go, hey, that's owned by EA because you showed a bit of Battlefield 5 or whatever it's going to be. And I won't be able to do anything about that, really. My options will either be to delete the video or just accept the fact that the video will then automatically have adverts on it and the advert money will go to EA. And that's a tricky thing because it's like, well, if I'd done it for another channel, they would have been able to get around that because different YouTube channels have different rules. It's bollocks. Some channels basically I can get away with doing it because they were made in an old-fashioned way and there are only like a very small number of these channels in the world that aren't being watched by the Google spiders and that they can get away with it. And then other companies, if they have a problem with it, have to directly do it in the old-fashioned way of sending a message saying this is copyright and then you going back and saying, no, it's not. And actually, this handful of channels that allow you to basically use copyright law in a fair way. And the person who's asked me to do it for them owns one of those. So that would mean that there would be adverts on the video, but the adverts money would be going to actually any of the people involved in the production of the video rather than just going to EA, but then, or whoever, but then it would be in a different place and it would be a bit weird. I think I'm just going to have to suck it up and accept that I'll probably make a video and they'll probably get claimed by someone else. And just so you know, though, it may well be that it doesn't matter to me because I'll be getting new people who like my work, who'll be checking out the rest of my stuff. They might even become patrons. fucking benefit sponges, awesome. So I think in the long term, I don't really care. But just so you know, if you see any of the videos on my channel that have adverts on, not my problem. I will contest them, but it won't happen in any, it takes time. So especially with the E3 stuff, don't be surprised if you see adverts on my videos. They're not mine. I can prove it to you if you want me to, but they won't be mine. They'll be someone else's. And finally for this week, I've done as many as I could, but I think I've done most of them actually. Yeah, I have. Yeah. Awesome. Bloody hell, actually, no, I actually done all of them so far, which is brilliant. I'm back on track. Which means this week, yeah, feel free to ask questions in the thread of this one on the Patreon page. If you're watching this on YouTube, by the way, and you want to ask questions, the way it works is if you are a benefit sponger, i.e. somebody who kindly gives me $5 a month to make things for the world, then yeah, you can ask a question by going to the Patreon page, going to the content thing and finding this video on that page. It's not very hard because it's usually quite recent, and then you can ask a question on the most recent video. You won't be able to see the video or the comments thing on the Patreon page unless you are a benefit sponger though. So just so you know, that's how it works. But the final question is a question nonetheless. Are you a fan of the Tex Murphy series? And if so, can we expect a skit of the game / FMVs in general with that swanky fedora? I'm not actually. I never really played a Tex Murphy game. I never really played FMV games, but I know how bad they are. I would love to do an FMV spoof at some point. I've heard rumors that they're making Night Trap. They're making another Night Trap remake. So maybe if that does happen, if they do actually get close to releasing a HD version of Night Trap, I might try and recreate Night Trap. But bear in mind, that would be me wearing a blonde wig and a bra in a pixelated bedroom. So fucking yes, mate. That's going to be awesome. Oh God, I really hope they do it now, just because then I can have an excuse to get every man I know around wearing blonde wigs and pretending to be captured by shit rubber vampires. Anyway, that's it for this week's video. I've done all the questions. And now I'm going to try and do some FTL stuff. God, these update videos are exhausting. It's quite a long one, isn't it? It's basically talking for an hour, isn't it? God, who would have thought that would be hard work? Anyway, thank you again for a lovely week and a lovely month. And I think I might treat myself to a haircut soon. Who knows? You can tell I could probably see it, even though I appear to be sitting in the dark, but I'm really not. It's just the lighting gods are not with me today. But at least I'm not wearing a fedora and looking like a David Bowie zebra from space. Thank you very much, guys. Bye!